Hello friends, today we are going to talk about one of the world's most mysterious and longest-running treasure hunts. This is a story that has captivated hundreds of people for over 200 years, a quest for which people have lost their lives, spent millions of dollars, and which, even today, is claimed to be buried beneath the earth. This is the mysterious Money Pit on Oak Island, located off the eastern coast of Canada. If you love stories of hidden pirate treasure, unsolved puzzles, and historical mysteries, then this tale will be nothing short of an exciting journey for you. Let's embark on this journey through time and find out why this small island has kept one of the world's greatest treasures a secret. The beginning of the search. A teenager's glimpse sparks hope. 1795. The story begins in the summer of 1795. On the south shore of Nova Scotia, Canada, lies a small island of just 140 acres, Oak Island. At the time, the island was largely uninhabited, visited only occasionally by locals for hunting or fishing. That year, a 16-year-old youth, Daniel McGinnis, was wandering on the island when his eyes fell upon an unusual depression in the ground beneath a large, ancient oak tree. This was no ordinary hole. On a branch of the tree, directly above the depression, were clear marks of an old pulley system, as if heavy objects had been lowered into the ground using a rope tied to that branch. The depression itself didn't look natural. Its edges were perfectly straight and regular, as if someone had deliberately dug a hole and then refilled it. This sight naturally piqued the curiosity of a teenage boy. Daniel immediately called his friends, John Smith and Anthony Vaughn. The three teenagers decided to start digging right then and there. They had no modern tools, no real plan, just youthful enthusiasm and an unquenchable thirst for discovery. As they began to dig, they started finding astonishing things, one after another. At a depth of 10 feet, their shovels struck a solid wooden platform. It was made of thick oak timber. Excited, they removed it and dug further. At 20 feet, another such oak platform. At 30 feet, a third. This pattern repeated every 10 feet. The walls of the pit showed clear marks from picks, proving that this hole had been carefully and systematically constructed by someone. The three young men were now convinced they were at the threshold of a great mystery. Only one word echoed in their minds: treasure. However, their joy was short-lived. After digging down to 30 feet, they ran out of money and machinery. The task was now beyond the means of three teenagers. They had to stop digging, but they committed the location to memory. This discovery would never leave their hearts and minds. The Unsolved Company and the Mysterious Stone, the first major step toward treasure, 1803 to 1805. 8 years passed. By 1803, Daniel McGinnis had grown from a curious teenager into a young man. He joined with his friends to form an organized group, which they named the Unsolved Company. This time, they had money, workers, and a solid plan. Their goal was clear: to dig up that mysterious pit completely and reach the treasure hidden within. Digging resumed, and as they descended deeper, the mystery deepened with them. The pre-existing platforms continued to appear, but the layers between them also began to yield clues. At 40 feet deep, a layer of charcoal. At 50 feet, a layer of putty. At 60 feet, the most astonishing find, a thick layer of coconut fiber. This discovery was truly shocking. Coconut trees do not grow in Canada's cold climate. These fibers must have been brought from some tropical region, like the Caribbean islands or the South Pacific. This suggested that whoever built this pit were travelers or sailors who undertook long voyages and transported goods from distant lands. The excitement was at its peak. Then, at 90 feet, they found what remains one of the most controversial parts of the story to this day: a stone. This was no ordinary stone. It was about 2 feet long, 1 foot wide and thick, with strange markings carved on its surface. These markings didn't resemble any known language. In subsequent years, several scholars and cryptographers, experts in secret scripts, tried to decipher these markings. The most famous translation was done by Professor James Leachy of Nova Scotia, who claimed the stone read, 40 feet below, 2 million pounds are buried. This was a clear message that they were exactly at the right spot. Their desire grew even stronger. They continued digging with full force, but as they neared a depth of 110 feet, disaster struck. Suddenly, water began to rapidly fill the pit. It wasn't fresh water, but salt water, meaning it was seawater. They tried everything to remove the water, but the more they pumped out, the more rushed back in. It was as if an invisible hand was pushing them away from the treasure. After struggling for months, by 1805, the Onslow Company had exhausted all its funds. They were forced to abandon the operation. However, they had proven that something was indeed in the pit, and to get it, they would have to overcome the water problem. The flood tunnel, an ingenious and deadly trap, 1849 to 1850. 44 years later, in 1849, a new group took on this daunting challenge. This time, it was the Truro Company, armed with powerful steam-powered pumps and drilling machines. Their plan was not only to pump out the water, but also to drill down to determine what lay at the bottom. Drilling commenced, and at 98 feet, the drill passed through a spruce wood platform. Then it encountered 4 inches of oak. Directly beneath that, the drill passed through a 22-inch layer of loose metal. This metal was so loose that the drill easily cut through it, like a box filled with coins or metal bars. After that came 8 inches of oak, another 22 inches of metal, more oak, and finally another spruce platform. The drill had passed through 2 such chest-like structures. When the drill was brought up, with it came 3 links from a gold chain. This was the first tangible proof that valuable metal was indeed present below. Unfortunately, in the excitement, these links were lost, which later raised questions about their authenticity. But the water problem resurfaced. This time, the Truro Company studied it more closely. They observed that the water level in the pit fluctuated with the tides. This meant seawater was directly connected to the pit. They tried using dye to trace where the water was coming from. Their attention turned to a small cove on the northern side of the island called Smith's Cove. They began digging there. What they found was astonishing. Beneath the surface, they discovered a completely artificial beach made of coconut fiber and seaweed. Under this artificial beach were 5 separate drainage tunnels constructed of stone that led to the sea. All these drains converged into a main channel, and that main channel led directly to the money pit. This was no ordinary trap. It was a marvel of hydraulic engineering. The person who hid the treasure had cleverly designed a system that would flood the entire area as soon as anyone got close to the treasure. It was clear that the one who hid this treasure was no ordinary thief, but a highly cunning engineer or a large organization. First Death and the Cement Vault, the Arrival of the Curse, 1861 to 1898. In 1861, the Oak Island Association resumed digging. They attempted to block the flood tunnels and installed powerful pumps to remove the water. But then an accident occurred. The boiler powering the pumps suddenly exploded. 1 worker died in the explosion. This was the first death associated with the digging of the Oak Island money pit. This incident marked the beginning of a legend. Gradually, it began to be said that a curse lay on the treasure. The legend was, until 7 people die on this island, the treasure will not be found. In 1893, a businessman named Fred Blair formed a new company. He managed to clear the money pit down to 111 feet and even temporarily succeeded in blocking the mouth of a flood tunnel. However, as soon as he dug further, water rushed in from another source. He realized that there wasn't just one, but likely multiple flood tunnels.
During drilling, layers of blue clay were found. This clay naturally acts as a water barrier. Between two such clay layers, the drill struck something Blair described as a 7-foot-high cement vault. This was the first indication that the treasure might be stored in a secure chamber. Along with this drilling came a small piece of sheepskin with letters written in ink, interpreted as VI or UI. In 1899, Blair's team discovered another flood tunnel on the south shore of the island. It was now clear that a complex double-trap system had been built to protect the treasure. This suggested that whoever had hidden it had made sure retrieving it would be almost impossible. The 20th century, from Roosevelt to Ristall, 1909 to 1965. Oak Island's allure grew even more.